Hi everyone, my name is Kevin Palmacio and I represent Mons Fromager Affineur in the US. I'd like to thank all of you for joining me today at this virtual tasting that I'm doing for my dining room. Thank you for buying all this awesome cheese that I have in front of me. This was actually supposed to happen in person back in the spring, but obviously did not. So a little bit of a change here today, but one that I think will be pretty productive, and hopefully you'll enjoy what you learn from me. I'd like to thank Beth as well for inviting me to do this. I've never been to Bayleaf before, so I did the virtual tour, but never been to Whidbey Island or the surrounding area. So here it's beautiful. I hope to get there at some point, but this will have to do for now. So thank you, Beth, for the platform, the ability to engage with some of your customers today. So we're going to taste this awesome cheese. Before we do, I do want to talk a little bit about Mons, some of our values, why we do what we do, how we do what we do, how we fit into the industry. So some of you may know Mons, or Hervé Mons in particular, who is kind of the guy in our organization. But I'll give everybody else a little bit of a refresher, touch on a tiny bit of science, nothing too in depth, and then we'll start eating some cheese. Mons, we are affineurs, not cheesemakers for the most part. We do make some cheese in France for some of our shops, but our core business is affinage. So that's at a very high level, aging cheese. So we've been doing work in the cheese business for a long time. So before we get into the affinage bit, I'll just give you a little background on the company. So the business started in 1964 with Hubert and Roland Mons, who are Hervé's parents. They started selling cheese at local farmers markets in the Auvergne, where the Mons family is from, just selling cheese off the back of their truck. At some point, it became necessary to store cheese, so we got involved with affinage kind of out of necessity in the early days. But we started off as retailers, and we were that way for a while, and our business has developed greatly over the years. Back in '64 we started. We've come a long way since then. We now, as of, I guess, 2018, we have 11 shops within about 3 hours of where we're based in the Rhône-Alpes in France. We have 2 shops in London, including a stall at Borough Market. We have 1 shop in Switzerland, and we sell cheese in like almost 30 countries now, so pretty big reach. So, as I said, we are based in the Rhône-Alpes, so kind of the south central region of France. We are at the base of a medieval village called Saint-Ouen-le-Châtel. That's where our headquarters is based. We redid the whole the cave system and all the offices there a few years ago. It's pretty state-of-the-art these days. That's our primary aging space. We have about 10 caves there. And then about 10 minutes down the road, we have an old train tunnel where we age some of our larger wheels. So I keep talking about aging, but what exactly is that? So our business is affinage. So we buy cheese from all over France. This is our business model. So there's about 1,000 different cheeses in France, more than that. We're looking for probably about 200 or so of what we think are the best representatives of the cheeses of France. So depending on protected designations and things like that, we buy the cheese when it's very, very young, and then we bring it back to our caves, and then we age it. The goal is to shepherd it to kind of an ideal state of maturity before we sell it all over the world. So that is the core business. Essentially, to do what we do, we play with 4 elements. We play with temperature, humidity, airflow, and air renewal. So temperature for most cheese caves is about 50 degrees, maybe a little bit colder, so relatively cold conditions for cheese aging. It keeps it from going too fast. Humidity levels, we're looking for really high humidity. So, typically over 90%, sometimes as much as 98% humidity is sought after. And then airflow, we're looking for really good air quality. We don't want it to move too fast through the room. We don't want it to get stagnant. We don't want ammonia to build up. So we're looking to kind of recreate some natural conditions. We fine tune those things to bring all the cheese in those particular caves to their best spot. So cheese is very much alive. You've probably heard that before. There's a lot of things we can do and we need to do to get the most out of the cheese that our producers are creating. So we're trying to coax out flavors and find the best possible representations of these amazing French cheeses that we sort. So what's happening in the cheese as it ages, right? So cheese goes from milk to a solid state, and then it kind of breaks down throughout its life cycle until you eat it. So what's happening is a process of continuous digestion. So firstly, microorganisms like molds, yeast, bacteria, they satisfy their appetite by devouring the nutrients present in the curd, which are proteins, fats, and sugars. This gradually transforms the structure and texture of the cheese and releases new chemical compounds, including many aromatic compounds. So the longer you age a cheese, a lot of times the more pronounced those individual characteristics will be because they develop over time. So that's what's happening in the cheese. Within the caves, some of the things that we're doing is we're flipping cheese, we're washing cheese, we're brushing cheese, we're rubbing them together. Some things are washed with just a brine, so like a saltwater solution. Other times we're washing things with alcohol. There's various tasks that we can perform that get the cheese to where we want it to go. So we are experts in that. Hervé himself is a MAF, which is a Meilleur Ouvrier de France. So he's a skilled artisan, and he's like achieved a level when it comes to affinage. So all of our cave staff have learned directly from working underneath Hervé, and we have an amazing team of professionals throughout the organization, but in particular on our affinage team as they care for our cheeses. So I mentioned the spaces a little bit. So at the headquarters in San Juan Le Chatel, we have, like I said, 10 caves. We have a couple drying rooms, a whole workspace for where the affineurs and the people that package the cheese operate. We redid that space back in 2015. It's totally state of the art now. Hervé's actually helped set up a lot of the cheese aging spaces in the US. Some of the big ones that you may have heard of before, maybe not. But his advice is sought out for sure. And then when we redid our caves, the originals had been built by his father in the 70s. We did them in 2015, rebuilt them. And it was Hervé's opportunity to do exactly what he wanted to do and have the best possible equipment. So our design is really optimized to have a great, great conditions for the cheese to age in, just starting with the shape of the caves. You probably don't go to too many aging facilities, but sometimes you'll see like a sock that runs down the middle of the cave to move the air around. It's the equivalent of flipping on a heater or air conditioner in your house. It's a sudden change. So what we're looking more is a constant atmosphere, so there's no shock to the system on any of the cheeses. So we thought of everything when it came to our caves, and we have an amazing facility for aging our smaller format cheeses in San Juan. So that's where we do the bulk of our cheese, or at least the most types of cheese that we're aging is done there. Like I said, 10 minutes down the road, we have another space. It's called the Tunnel de la Colonia. So this is an old train tunnel where we age big wheels of cheese. So Comté, Beaufort, Salers, Cantal. We have a smaller version of Cantal we're going to taste today, but the really big ones are aged in the old train tunnel. So it's about a 100-meter long train tunnel, totally buried in the mountain. The conditions are super steady all year round, and it's a perfect environment for aging these big wheels of cheese. So those are our two aging spaces. Really a sight to see. So if you ever get the chance to come visit us in France, we'd love to have you. But pretty unique. That's kind of what we do. Some things that are important to us, and I think what set us apart is how we approach people, places, and animals. So people, those are our producers. So we have really good relationships with our producers. These guys are scattered all over the place. Hervé likes to joke that they're never close to a highway. So it's hard to maintain relationships, but super critical in doing what we do, just to make sure we know everything that's happening at the producers, whether it's climate things that might impact a particular batch or a season's worth of cheese. And then we have the ability to talk to our shops about that and to the people we're selling the cheese to. All the way to providing support if these guys need support. So a lot of our producers are very small. We look for really small producers that do things in the traditional manner. So we're really making a lot of small family farms economically viable by buying their cheese. So that's super important to us, is to support small and large producers for sure, but to be a partner in the job that we do. When it comes to places, like I said, France is a country of 1,000 or more cheeses. Terroir is a taste of place that's defined by Jasper Hill. So terroir is, a particular cheese will taste of its location, from the soil and the grasses and everything that the cows are eating that translates in the cheese. So we look to buy cheeses from producers who best represent their landscape and these traditional French cheeses that we often carry. So terroir is massively important for us, something we really believe in. And then the animals, we have very high standards for feed and living conditions for the animals. We also view animals a little bit like grapes for wine, where certain animals make the most sense for a certain region and for a certain type of cheese, where other people may look for high yield from their milk producing cows. We're just going for the ones that make the most sense and really deliver the best quality cheese. So we take this very seriously, obviously. The end product is some very delicious cheese, which is, I think, what your main takeaway will be today. So let's start talking about some of the cheeses that we have on our plate today. So there's going to be 6 cheeses that we taste together today. The first one is this one right here. I mentioned a large wheel like Cantal. This is actually Cantalais, entre deux. So Cantal A, smaller wheel, and then in between, because it's a middle age profile. So some Cantal can be aged for 1 to 2 months. That's the really young wheels. Some are aged for 7 months or more. Those are the older wheels. This is the in-between profile. So this wheel has been aged for probably about 4 months. It's a very mild cheese. So it's cow's milk. It's from the Auvergne, just like the Mons family, so it's a special cheese for us. It's one of France's oldest cheeses, and it's considered to be an ancestor of English cheddars. It pairs really well with reds like Merlot, Pinot Noir, or whites like Sauvignon Blanc to Gewürztraminer, or an amber beer is also really nice with this cheese. So if you pick it up, you got a nice piece right in front of me here. First thing I get when I pick it up and smell it is a really strong milky taste, a little bit like whey. If you've ever been in a cheese making facility before, perhaps not, but whey is very much what I'm smelling. And then as you continue to go, you get a little bit of a barnyard animal-y sort of smell as well. That's not necessarily going to translate in the taste, but if you're looking for a mild cheese, that's probably okay. So take a little piece off. You see it breaks up like a cheddar, so the cheddar comparison makes a lot of sense. You can see the barkings of the curd within the paste. It's really nice, really mild. I get really like fresh milk, dried fruits, and then there's a salty finish to the cheese. So it's super pleasant, very approachable. One that I think will do really well. So this is a 17-pound wheel of cheese. Like I said, it's the smaller version. The larger version is about 90 pounds, right around there, maybe a little bit less, give or take a few pounds. But a fantastic first cheese, and I think a good one to start with because it's on the milder side. All right, so that's Cantalais. The next one we're gonna taste is a cheese that's exclusive to Mons. So this one is Gabiotu. So this one is from the Pyrenees, the Basque region in France. It's a mixture of sheep's milk and cow's milk. It's pasteurized. So this is a cheese that was introduced by Gabriel Bachelet, or created by Gabriel Bachelet back in 2001. And he did it. He was only making sheep's milk cheese at the time. But he had tasted some mixed milk cheeses, couldn't find anything that he liked, and he said, I'm gonna make my own. So it's about a 50-50 split of cow's milk and sheep's milk. It is a very approachable cheese. It's a crowd-pleasing sort of cheese. If I ever do a demo, it's one where there may be things on the plate that I think are a little bit more interesting, but the people that are at the demo, they love the Gabiotu every single time. So this one comes in a 6.5-pound wheel. The texture is not as brittle as the Cantalais. It's a little bit more supple. This cheese pairs really well with reds like Gamay, Pinot Noir. A blonde beer is really nice with this one as well. If you smell it, it's got a little bit of a hazelnut aroma, to it. Another one that's a little bit milky. This is one where the taste is super smooth. It just melts in your mouth despite being a little bit elasticy. Feeling with the paste, it just melts away, lingers on the palate for a long time. It's milky, it's nutty, it's slightly earthy and grassy, but not overpowering. It's very approachable. Like I said, it's very much a crowd pleaser. We sell a lot of this cheese in the US. It's the only cheese at Mohn's that has its own dedicated cave. So Gaviatu, really, really nice one. Hope you enjoy it. The next one we're gonna do is the Pavé du Nord. So that is the bright orange cheese on your plate. Some of you may look at that if you haven't had it previously and think, hey, it reminds me of Mimolette. So Mimolette is a classic French cheese that's got this bright orange color to it. That one's shaped a little bit like a cannonball. So that's the cheese that everybody knows. This is made by a producer that also makes Mimolette in Normandy. It's pasteurized cow's milk. It gets its bright orange color from the annatto seed. So a lot of times with Goudas and any bright orange cheeses you see, that's how it gets its coloring. No flavor added, just the coloring. So this is a great cheese from my perspective for a lot of reasons. It's really approachable, another one that's a crowd pleaser. It's really just kind of a salty sweet combination, so it's generally loved by everybody. It gets its name from, it translates to the paving stone of the north, right? So it comes in like a loaf sort of form or like a big brick. So it gets its name from the paving stones and the bricks in the town where it was created, or the area where it was created. So it's distinguishable that way. One of the things I like most about working with it is it's easier to cut than Mimolette. So it's aged about 10 to 12 months, so perhaps it's a little younger than some Mimolettes you'll find, so it makes it a little bit softer. Mimolette also, like I said, comes in that cannonball shape, where this is more like a loaf of bread, so you can cut slices. There's more paste to rind ratio on it, so I think it's a really good option. This is a cheese that always makes me continue to want to eat more of it as I go. It makes me crave like a beer or a drink, and then just over and over again I start to snack on it. So this is a really, really nice cheese. If you see some of the pieces I have in front of me are like a regularly shaped. This is one where I think it makes a lot of sense to chunk it with a knife tip as opposed to cutting like a stick like the cheese we'll taste next. It looks a little bit better, more rustically chopped up. So keep that in mind if you do it. Pairing wise, perhaps like a light Cabernet and Nebbiolo, something like that. Like I said, I'm a beer guy with this cheese, like a nice brown beer, something like a Newcastle would be delicious with this cheese. So that's the Pavé du Nord. We sell lots of that, obviously this time of year in October. All right, so the next one we're gonna do is kind of like an Alpine style of cheese. So there's a few of those from France that are very well known. This is not one of those. This one is the Cœur de Savoie, which means the heart of the Savoie. It's a raw cow's milk cheese from Savoie. It's made with the same high quality milk as Beaufort, which is my favorite cheese, specifically the Alpage, like the high altitude wheels. I don't think Beaufort is not beatable in my opinion. Not on this plate today, perhaps someday, but the same milk is used to produce this cheese. So this is the largest wheel we've seen yet. So this is about an 88-pound wheel. So it's a big piece of cheese. I imagine Beth purchased it in a smaller format in like 11-pound wedges, which are a little bit easier to deal with, but it is a big old wheel of cheese. So this one is one of the cheeses that's aged in our train tunnel, the Tunnel de la Colonia. So it ages at least 6 months. We do age some out longer, but for the most part, it's about 6 to 8 months, and then we sell them in the US primarily. So this one, smell-wise, it's more florally. I would say we're starting to get into cheeses that have more powerful tastes at this point. So typically we're going mild to strong. That's what we're doing here for sure. So super fruity, florally, grassy. When this cheese is really good, it tastes to me like green onions a little bit, scallions. Those are the notes that I get. This wheel is maybe a little bit more nutty, animally, barnyardy in a really pleasant way. Like Gruyere, this is a fantastic melting cheese, the Cœur de Savoie. It's a great snacking cheese too. I mean, I'm gonna eat more of that as soon as we finish this up. But it's a really wonderful cheese. Pairs with like a crisp white wine from Savoie or the Loire Valley, or a blonde beer with this one. I think is really nice as well. So that's the Cour de Savoie. It's a really good one. Good cooking cheese. The next one we're gonna do, in my opinion, is the star of this tasting. So they're all really good. I think this is probably the most special thing we have on the board. Certainly the most aged, and that is the Etivaz. So this is more raw cow's milk. This one's from Switzerland though. So just to kind of give you a feel for, we age cheese primarily from France, but we have some Goudas and stuff at the caves as well. And then we do a number of Swiss cheeses. So for the most part, everything I have today is from Mons Fromager Affineur. But we also work closely with a brand called Swiss Cru. The guy that's in charge of that was our former European sales guy. So some of the Swiss cheeses Beth has access to come to Mons via Swiss Cru, and this is one of them. They're doing some pretty amazing things. We have Gruyere and a variety of other things as well, but this Etivaz is very, very special. So it's raw cow's milk from Switzerland. This wheel is a little bit smaller. It's like a 40 or 50 pound wheel typically. It's farmstead production, whereas everything else on the board is very small scale production. This is actually farmstead. So it's made by a family business, Paquier Motet. So it's a husband and wife, a couple kids, and they have some people from around town that come and help them out when this cheese is produced. It's only made for 4 months out of the year, pretty high altitude. The producer makes 150 wheels of this cheese each year. They sell 50 of those wheels at a local market, and then Swiss Cru, Michael Mathieu, get the other 100 wheels. So this is one of those 100. So a pretty special wheel to have. This is a PDO cheese, so it's a protected designation, just like the Cantal is as well. It's an AOC, the French equivalent. So I didn't mention that previously, but those are the two protected cheeses on this board. Like I said, it's only made in the summer months, about 4 months out of the year. The cows are grazing on these flowering alpine slopes, eating a really interesting diet, which is why this is an explosion of flavor, this cheese. So to smell it, it's another one that smells pretty grassy and fruity. When you taste it, it hits you. I mean, you'll see when you guys try this. It's intensely fruity, it's nutty. You get aromas of hazelnut and like warm butter. That's what you're smelling. When you taste the cheese, it explodes in your palate. A sign of a good cheese a lot is the mouth coating effect, and if you taste it for a long time, and this is one of those cheeses where you have a little tiny bite and it goes on forever. So I'm extremely excited for you guys to try this one. I wish I was there to gauge your reactions because this is a very, really special cheese. So the last cheese, I don't think I mentioned pairing. So just for pairing purposes, maybe like a fruity wine from the Jura or a brown beer. So whatever you're in the mood for. But fruity wine to go with, like I said, a pretty fruity cheese. So the last one is the Simi Blue. So in a tasting like this, or just in general, I think it's a good move to save the blue cheese for last. It can tend to taint your palate a little bit. That may be fine for you, but whenever someone like me is organizing a tasting, for the most part, the blue cheese goes last. This, however, is a pretty mild blue cheese. It's another one of Michael's Swiss cheeses, so kind of under the Mons label, but also the Swiss Cru label. And that's Simi Blue right there. So a pretty small wheel. It's only about 3 pounds or so, the wheel. So it's the smallest format cheese we have on the board. If you smell it, it smells really milky, and it smells like it would be a relatively funky blue cheese. Like not overpoweringly so, but it's got those like nutty blue cheese aromas to it that you're probably familiar with. But the flavor is super mild. So this one is thermized cow's milk, so kind of a middle. It's not raw milk, it's not fully pasteurized, but it's a little bit of a lower temperature heat treatment wise. And it's cow's milk from Simmental. So this cheese in particular was produced by Walter Truthard. It's aged about 6 weeks and it's wrapped in foil, so it's super young when it gets sold. It's thermized for US customers and Australian customers, but they also make a raw milk version for European customers. So this cheese gets its name from the Simi River that goes from Lenk to Zweisimmen. This region is home to an heirloom breed of Simmental cattle, which graze on lush grasses and produce some of the highest quality milk in Switzerland. So super high quality milk goes into this cheese, and it's subtle, but if you really pay attention, it's pretty complex as well. It's far from boring. So I would call it approachable for sure, maybe a starter blue cheese, something that people will really appreciate as well because it's unique. There's not a whole lot of this out there. I'm guessing you've probably never seen Simi Blue before. Flavor wise, I get creme fraiche and butter, but it's balanced with those typical nutty blue cheese notes. It can be pretty decadent at times. Some blue cheese will get spicy as it gets older. This one never gets to spicy. So it's always going to be pretty mild, but it's nuanced if you taste it. So give this one a try. I will do that right now. Nice. I typically eat it out of the fridge. This has been warmed up for a little while, and the flavors are coming out a little bit more. It's definitely got that blue cheese tang to it, but not overpowering, like I said. So hopefully you've let your cheese sit out for about an hour. That's always a good general guideline. I still let cheese sit out for an hour, come to room temperature, and you taste those flavors a little bit more. So that's really nice. Pairs well with like a smooth white wine, like a Sauterne or an amber beer. That'd be really nice as well. All right, so those are the 6 cheeses that we are tasting today. I wish I could gauge which one you thought was your favorite. Obviously impossible to do that over this format, but please let Beth know and I'll follow up and I'll get some insight. So these are 6 cheeses that are fantastic that you already have in front of you. We did not taste the softer cheeses today, but she's gonna be carrying some of those as well. So I know I saw Petite Élétaire on her list of cheeses that she's bringing in, kind of steady throughout the rest of the year. That's a pasteurized sheep's milk cheese, a little small format sheep's milk cheese from the same producer as the Gabbiatu, Agor. So a really good producer that produces high quality sheep's milk. So look for those. They're about 2.7 ounces. So they're really small, good for a couple people or a few people. Delicious cheese, Petite Élétaire. Another one that she's gonna have is the Sainte-Maure Cendré. Sainte-Maure is kind of like a log-shaped cheese that perhaps you've seen before. A lot of times it has a straw that runs down the middle. This is an ashed version of that without the straw. It's very, very nice. So a young goat cheese, that's really, really impressive. And if the Simi Blue was good, but you like a stronger blue cheese, I know I saw some Roquefort on that list as well, which is, other than Beaufort Alpage, maybe my second favorite cheese. So keep a lookout for those. They're gonna be delicious. Hopefully there'll be a lot more to come. Like I said, as soon as I can travel to Bayleaf, I will do that. I'll bring more cheese with me. I'll set up shop and we can taste some new and different things in the shop because there's a lot more that Mons has to offer. But thank you very much for joining me with this one today. I appreciate the time. I hope everybody loved the cheese. Thank you very much, and I will see you guys later. Have a good night.